DefenseCon 2956 may go down as one of the most important events in Star Citizen's history. What began as a replacement for the traditional Invictus Launch week quickly evolved into something much larger, a massive celebration of the project's growth, a gigantic free-fly onboarding campaign, and ultimately the event during which Star Citizen officially crossed the historic $1 billion funding milestone. Unlike previous years where Invictus Launch Week dominated Stanton, 2956 saw the UEE move the event back to Seoul in lore, allowing Drake Interplanetary to fully take over Area 18 with DefenseCon. The result felt less like a standard military showcase and more like a hybrid between Invictus and the Intergalactic Aerospace Expo. Nearly every major manufacturer was present. Ship reveals came non-stop throughout the week, and the scale of community engagement felt significantly larger than previous military-themed events. The biggest headline, without question, was Star Citizen officially surpassing $1 billion in lifetime crowdfunding. By the beginning of DefenseCon, the public RSI funding tracker sat just below $970 million. During the event, however, funding surged hard enough to push the product beyond the $1 billion mark, officially making Star Citizen the most heavily crowdfunded video game ever created, which was already the case. The milestone attracted enormous media attention, with gaming outlets far outside the usual Star Citizen ecosystem suddenly covering the project again. A major contributor to that momentum was the sheer scale of the ship sales and reveals during the event. Drake brought the long-awaited Ironclad and Ironclad Assault into the spotlight, while the Pitbull added another aggressive combat-focused vehicle to the manufacturer's lineup. Origin unveiled the M80. Misk introduced the Starlight support vessel, and Aegis revealed the Tiburon. However, the ship that completely dominated the conversation was, of course, the Anvil Odin. The massive battlecruiser sold at around $5,000, sometimes even more with store credits, despite, of course, not being flyable yet, instantly becoming one of the most controversial and talked about ship sales in Star Citizen history. Critics, of course, attacked it, supporters defended it, and gaming media everywhere amplified the discussion. Any bad publicity is good publicity, after all. Ironically, the controversy likely increased visibility for the event far beyond what a normal Invictus-style week would usually generate. One of the most difficult aspects of analyzing DefenseCon 2956 is determining exactly how much money the event generated. Unlike publicly traded companies, Cloud Imperium Games does not reveal official post-event revenue reports for each event, including, of course, DefenseCon or Invictus, although we can always track the funding ourselves on the website. Instead, the community reconstructs these figures by tracking the changes on the live RSI funding counter before, during, and after each event. That means that Star Citizen backers can still track each of these events with a pretty good precision. For example, Invictus Launch Week 2955 is considered highly reliable because community spreadsheets preserved hourly funding tracker movements directly from RSI's public API. According to those trackers, Invictus 2955 generated precisely $23,834,724 during the event and brought Star Citizen's total lifetime funding roughly to $806 million by the end of the week. Community trackers also recorded 68,192 new accounts created during that event alone. Invictus Launch Week 2954 is also fairly well documented, with archive tracker data placing total event revenue at about $19,670,071 and lifetime funding at about $663 million by the end of the event. Invictus 2953, however, is much harder to reconstruct precisely because, fewer funding archives survived. But it seems that the event still raised $13.5 million, and at the end of the event, Star Citizen had raised $544 million. DefenseCon 2956 is of course a bit different because it just finished, and we know with certainty that of course Star Citizen crossed the $1 billion milestone during the event, and we know that the RSI tracker sat at around $966 to $967 million beforehand. However, The final community archival spreadsheet are still being compiled and verified, but based on tracker movement observed throughout the event, the most common accepted reconstruction currently places DefenseCon 2956 at roughly $34 million raised during the event. While not yet considered a finalized archival figure, like for example 2955, it would still place DefenseCon among the single largest funding event in Star Citizen history. The account growth during the event is also enormous. RSI counts total climbed past 6.5 million users during DefenseCon, which estimates suggesting that more than 100,000 new accounts have been created throughout the free fly period. Naturally, not all of these accounts represent paying customers, as free fly events always attract alternate accounts and returning trial users, but the scale of player interest was undeniable. What makes DefenseCon 2956 particularly fascinating is how dramatically the event demonstrates Star Citizen's continued financial growth over time. In just 3 years, military-themed event funding appears to have nearly tripled. Invictus 2953 generated $15.5 million, Invictus 2954, $20 million, Invictus 2955 surged to nearly $24 million, and DefenseCon 2956 may ultimately settle around $34 million. At the same time, total project funding climbed from roughly $554 million to over $1 billion in 2026. That means that in just 3 years, Star Citizen doubled its funding, going from about $500 million to $1 billion. That is insane. Whether one views Star Citizen positively or critically, of course, the scale of that growth is impossible to ignore. DefenseCon 2956 was not simply another annual sales event. It became a cultural moment within the gaming industry, fueled by controversy, massive ship reveals, enormous free fly participation, and the symbolic impact of crossing the $1 billion threshold. For Cloud Imperial Games, it was likely one of the most commercially successful and visible events the company has ever organized. For the community, it marked the moment Star Citizen officially entered an entirely new era, the post-billion-dollar era, which will mark the release of Squadron 42 and the push to version 1.0 that will come afterwards. That is all for this video, guys. Let me know in the comment section down below, what did you think of this year's Invictus, or should I say DefenseCon? What ships did you buy? Did you buy anything? Did you boycott it perhaps? I'd like to know your thoughts about it. Were you also disappointed that there has been no letter from the Sherman so far, or no celebration for the $1 billion mark from CIG? That is something that I'm going to talk probably about in the next coming videos. Anyway, that is all for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the content, as always, please let me know with a thumbs up. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel a lot. I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.